everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today? I got a little bit of a stiff neck. Let me just fix this up. Oh, that feels a lot better. Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained, things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
No human being would stack books like this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. The instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I?
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have the talent.
It's Miller time.
Luminous being so be, not this fruit batcher.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Enough, I get the point.
You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Sometimes happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you going to call?
It's showtime.
All right, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 285 of Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. Tonight, my guest is Clayton Barton. And no, you're not repeating the day. He was supposed to be on a few weeks ago. He ended up being back on the show. He ended up coming on a little bit late, about an hour or so late. And we had a really great conversation, but we decided, let's get a full-fledged show, do it right, and this is the date for that. So good to have him back on and good to see you guys here. Now, before I bring him on, I do want to mention the campaign real quick on newsprintcomics.com. We are very, very close to the 60% mark. We had an anonymous donor today donate $100 towards the campaign. Outside of the campaign, that is going to get added into it tomorrow. So we're about $44 adding that into it. We're about $44 away from the 60% mark, which would be the $9,000 mark on the campaign. If you haven't had a chance yet to check it out, go to newsprintcomics.com. It's on Fund My Comic right now. And there's about, I think, like 26 or so days left. And this is to fund in-house printing of newsprint single issues at Alterna. And not just for Alterna, but for a lot of other creators as well. I'm going to be printing books for other people too, doing the books the way we do them. They're going to be also done for those folks as well. So if you haven't had a chance, again, please check out that campaign. A very important campaign, and it can mean a lot to a lot of people, myself included, but way more than just me. So if you're a creator, check it out. If you're someone who wants to support this, but you're not a creator and you like the idea of this endeavor, check it out. There's some perks on the campaign for you as well. Let's see, who do we have here before we get started? We got Bretsky in the chat. What's up, Bretsky? We got Ara here too. How's it going, Ara? Creators Outlet in the chat as well. What's up, Creators Outlet? Michael Bancroft is here. Look at that. Says, will Clayton show? He is here. He is here. So he will be here. He is here. And it looks like that's it for now. That's it for now in terms of me saying hello to you. If I missed you, I'm sorry. But let's bring on Clayton, the man of the hour, right there.
Hey, Peter, and everybody watching. Thank you so much for having me once again. Apparently, you just couldn't get enough of me, Peter.
I can't get enough of you, man. We always have good conversations.
Yeah, heck yeah, we do. And you're well versed in having conversations because I noticed there that you're up to episode 285. That's like almost 300 episodes. So you're a well versed radio show host at this point.
Hey, your words, not mine.
I mean, that's just what happens, man. Exposure therapy. You would have built up those conversational skills like no one's business.
Yeah, well, the crazier part is that it isn't just like these 285 episodes are the only shows I've done. You know, so between this channel and then the alternate channel and then all the interviews and stuff that I've been on, like tomorrow I'm on Andy Smith's channel with him and Dennis. And all I could think is between all those, I must have hit 1,000 or something at some point.
Wow.
That's a lot of hot air from me.
And do you feel like you've become... Yeah, I'm going to assume you're an introverted dude at like house parties and stuff, but do you feel like you're a much better conversationalist after doing all, like, can you fake it better now that you've done all of these interviews with people?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, you know, you definitely have to learn that skill. Like, you know, one of the jobs that I did before, or I should say during when I was making comics was a substitute teacher.
Oh, nice.
And I never would have thought that I would have gone down that road. But I mean, I've taught art classes at libraries, just like workshops and stuff for kids. And then I did substitute teaching for a few years, all the grades, all kinds of different kids, several different schools. And, you know, you really, you can't be shy, you know.
Yeah.
That'll
teach you a lot.
Yeah. They'll eat you alive otherwise, you know. So, you know, you don't need to be overtly, you know, aggressively assertive because that doesn't really work either. But you have to be able to talk and you have to be okay with that. If you're the kind of person that like you talk and you can feel you're getting all, you know, red faced and you're getting flushed, like, you know, hopefully that comes out of you as you do more of this. But it is a skill, I think, that I've managed to kind of get slightly better at, especially if I look back at some older videos. You just got to do it a lot, you know, like any other kind of thing. You just got to keep doing it and keep trying to get better at it. That's it.
Totally. Well, I thought as I was listening to you do the intro, Peter has a really good documentary voice. It's monotone in that Mulder monologuing kind of way.
Oh,
you know what I mean? You know, in the X-Files, how sometimes Mulder would monologue for a bit and talk about all the conspiracies and whatnot, and you know how they were affecting him on a personal level. And then there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that actually do conspiracy documentaries and just other documentaries of all kinds, and they all have that monotone style voice. I'm like, man, I gotta develop a little bit more of that because over the years I became a little bit more up and down with the resonance of my voice, and now I want to get more of that monotoneness back because I think sometimes that's a bit easier to listen to.
I don't know. I mean, you know, you work with what you got, right?
Exactly. That's true. But you can develop it, you know, you can sharpen the sword a little bit.
Yeah, what I can't do is what is really popular with a lot of YouTube, where that's the talking a mile a minute, kind of high-pitched, overly excited, like fakely so. You know, in the insincere energy, the smile, but the eyes don't smile. That kind of creepy Mr. Beast stuff.
Nothing behind the eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really do that.
Yeah, dude, man. I feel you when you say that, because when you're talking about fake and genuine, I've thought about doing it because we're all here to build an audience on YouTube, right? But man, you really do have to stick with who you are in that sense, because unless you're a hyperactive, like ADHD, talking a million miles a second kind of person, it's going to be difficult to keep up that act. And people can see through it, as you said.
Yeah, although it seems to be working for a lot of those people, which I don't know what that says about society.
Yeah, well, I guess every word that they're dropping is like a dopamine hit, right? It's like they're getting their fix. Who knows?
It makes me anxious, you know. Like I like what you do with a lot of people that I talk to on here. You know what they do. I like that better. I don't like that mile a minute type of thing, and that kind of shrillness. I can't watch videos. Like, people send me stuff, and I'm sure the content is good in terms of what's being discussed, but in terms of just listening to it, I just can't do it. And I'm sure there's people who probably feel that way about me too, but I mean, I really can't do anything about that. So you know, you either are here for it or you're not. But I don't gravitate towards that. So I guess I don't know what that maybe says about me, you know, but it is what it is.
Well, it can be exhausting. Like, when you're being fired that much information at you at that amount of rapid interval, it can be fatiguing to absorb. So I think this is way better. And I think it's one of the reasons as to why long form podcast content is becoming so popular. It's because it's a little bit more soothing and relaxing. You can be anywhere, doing anything, and switch it on, kind of let it take you on a journey, right? Whereas that other stuff, I don't know, man. I don't know what situation you got to be in to watch Mr. Beast. I'm assuming it'll be like, because it takes your attention. Like, you can't really do anything else at the same time, which I guess is the whole idea.
Drinks, I suppose.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true that. We're just old timers, I think, Peter.
Maybe.
Judging by your intro. Anyway, I loved your intro, by the way. Man, that Bigfoot video is legit. I still
think
think
a Rorschach test I found for people, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's if you dig it, you know, it says something about you, especially what kind of clips you dig out of it. And then if you really don't care for it, which not a lot of people have said that they don't care for it, just a couple. But
really?
you know, it's everything. I look at everything and I'm like, what does that say about you? What have you been through? What are your experiences that have shaped that opinion? Like, no judgment, just well, maybe a little judgment, but nothing, you know, nothing that makes me think you're a good or bad person, but one of those things where I'm just curious where you're coming from, because it is interesting, like art in general, you know, like what speaks to you. And you know, I don't need to know why. I'm just more fascinated by like what speaks to you, and then what have you been through in your experiences, because that has obviously shaped what you're into.
100%. Maybe, do you find it's the younger generation that maybe doesn't connect with it as much? Because I notice there's a lot of references to the 90s and the 80s there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but there isn't anything that's like so niche and referential in terms of like the what's being shown is probably from, like, you know, those time periods, but it's not like there's lingo or references to something that would have just been trapped in that moment, you know. And I think that's what's so great about art in general, whether you want to call that intro or the content of it art, or you want to just say art in general, like comics or anything, is that it transcends, you know? So you could talk about stuff that's like hundreds or thousands of years old in some cases.
Oh,
and
for sure.
The reason it still connects is because there's something there that resonates.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. There's some things that remain true no matter how old and ancient they become. I think we're talking a little bit about that. In fact, the last time we caught up, Peter, I'm getting back into it already.
Yeah. You know,
the meaning of life and humanity.
Well, I'm curious with you, the stuff that you've created, and not just comic wise, but you know what you're doing with like the How to Draw Comics Academy, what you're doing to try to kind of pass the torch and enlighten and enrich the lives of others. You know, where did that all come from with you?
You know, I asked myself that question because they say whenever you set out on a big endeavor like that, whatever your goal is in life, it's important to have a really big why so that you remain motivated enough to do it. Because a lot of these great things that we set out to accomplish are very, very difficult. And there's a lot of things that are going to discourage you, that are going to set you back. And to get back up again and continue pursuing it, you need to know why you're doing that. Otherwise, you'll just give up halfway through. And because that's usually the way it goes. It goes, you start out up here, and you're like, you got these big ambitions, and you're excited, and you can't wait to jump into it. And then very soon you find that, oh damn, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. And then you get beaten up a lot, and you get stomped on. And eventually, if you stick in there and have faith, the idea is that you'll make your way out of it and reach the other side. So I thought, well, what is that for How to Draw Comics and the How to Draw Comics Academy? I kind of sat back and I thought, well, you know, me, myself, I think that I can draw to a point where I'm satisfied within me with the things that I can create. And that was really the bar that I set for myself, as I saw all this other really amazing stuff being created by Greg Capullo, Mark Silvestri, Frank Frazetta, freaking Bernie Wrightson. I thought, man, if I had the power and the ability to create at that level, my goodness, that would be freaking awesome. I could create whatever I want and I would love it. And that's the way that I've always been. When I've seen someone doing something amazing, you know, it could be like you, Peter, doing a really cool podcast, or someone puts out a really incredible movie that hits a chord with me. I want to set out and create the same thing. For some reason, it's contagious to me, right? And so the downside with me, however, as an artist, is that I'm really slow. Because I'm a perfectionist, at least I used to be a little bit more of a perfectionist, so it takes me a long time to produce a piece of work, to the point where, you know, you could commission me and I'd do it for you, and you'd pay me a reasonable amount of money, but at the end of the day, when you compared how much time was spent creating it in comparison to the financial give back and investment that I'd made, it really would never link up, not in a realistic manner. Like, at the end of the day, you'd have to be paying me $3,000 essentially if I was working by the hour. So, and you can't ask people to do that. You know, that's more like, hey, $400, sure, I'll do your cover. So I was able to create really cool things. Took me forever. Would never be able to work really in a studio, but I could work on my own projects, and that was enough for me. And I thought, well, hey, maybe the way around this is to pass my skills down to the other aspiring artists of the world, to as many motivated people who wanted to get into this craft as possible. Because if I could do that, then they'd go out there, maybe they'd be a little bit faster than me, and they'd all create their own comic book projects. Or they'd be working on comic book projects, whether it be in the mainstream industry, in the indie scene. And the thing is, they'd be putting out amazing work. They'd be able to express themselves using the skills that I'd taught them. So I thought, well, I got two options here. I could keep all of these skills to myself and maybe put out a few things here and there once every few years. Or I could teach it to hundreds and thousands at this point of other people, and they could all create incredible stuff that inspired the rest of the world. So that's why I decided to choose howtodrawcomics.net and the Academy, because I felt that I could have a much bigger impact on not only the people wanting to get into this stuff, but the comic book industry as a whole, and especially in the independent field, because I really think that's the way it's going. Honestly, I think that every industry, in fact, is going to go like personal brand independent very shortly.
Oh yeah, I mean, just the way that things are progressing, you're able to do that now. Like it's
Yeah.
starting to not make much sense to go through middlemen. And I know that's weird for me to say, although I say it all the time. I'm a publisher, but I'm not going to tell you that you need me. If you think there's some value in what I do, if you want to work together, like I always stress, it's a collaborative effort. Like we work together, we
Yeah.
can get more done. Like that's just the way it is. But if you're someone who's kind of a lone wolf and you're looking to get published, with the publisher, you don't need a publisher, and you probably shouldn't use a publisher at this point. There's so many tools available to you, and you'll have a much better time of being a self-publisher as opposed to working with a publisher. Because even things like retail and distribution and all that, it's not all it's chalked up to be.
Oh yeah.
It's like, thinking, and some people think this, and I used to think it too, but looking back, it really is like you're playing the lottery with a lot of that stuff. It isn't an answer to an automatic tale of success. It's just for a lot of people, they go into retail and it can completely ruin their entire business.
Yeah.
That's more often the case than not. So, it is better to stay agile and be able to pivot and be able to navigate things quickly. And you can do that when you're an independent creator. But if you're kind of tied to a bigger publisher or whatever, you sort of go with whatever they want to do and when they want to do it.
You give away a lot of your control when you sign up to have someone else either fund the project that you're doing or publish it for you. I think Peter is a very honest man, so he's trustworthy, right? You can trust Peter. But I'm talking about the other publishers, and even like labels as well. If you're in the music industry, and I'm sure movies have their own sort of dirty deals that they end up creating with genuine people who just want to express themselves. So you got to be careful of that stuff, but as Peter was just talking about, there is a new age coming. It's probably already here. Look, the reality is AI is going to be picked up by the larger companies. VO, which was just VO 3, I think it is, which was just released by Google, is producing video AI productions that on a level I've never seen before. And I've been following this stuff for a while, and I thought, damn, okay, those larger companies are just going to replace everybody with AI. And they're going to get a reputation for doing that. The audiences that normally tune into the productions that they create, they're going to just, as a given, understand that these larger corporations have taken on AI as a way to produce things at a very cheap rate. So it's going to feel cheap, and the soul isn't really going to be there. So what are people going to look to? Well, they're likely going to look to the more underground stuff. It'll be underground at first, but the other side of that coin is that independent creators have a lot of freedom to be able to build up their audiences now. There's a lot of different outlets to actually pull people through and get them to look at your stuff. Like that's what the internet has given us. And those audiences are going to be looking for something authentic. That's one of the reasons as to why regular people sitting in their car, putting the camera on and making a YouTube video that's like an hour long has all of a sudden become popular again on YouTube. Because people are done with like the fake Mr. Beast stuff and the ingenuine vibes that people who are really seeking just to up their view count or to make money really were basing their content around. People are done with that, and they want to connect to real people who have a genuine need to create and express and give something valuable to the world. That's where people are going to be spending their money, I think. Because AI just, for one, it's going to saturate itself. It's going to be like a giant bubble that ultimately can't withstand the pressure of its own weight. And where are people going to go? They're going to seek out that individual creator. That's my rant. That's my ramble. It's the way I think it's going, Peter.
You know, it's like anything else. If everyone is doing one thing, the person who's doing something different than that thing is going to start to attract attention.
For sure.
And it doesn't matter if it's AI, it doesn't matter if it's a certain art style, it doesn't matter if it's anything. You know, in music, you'd see that a lot, where all of a sudden someone's got a different sound. So even if you're not doing the sound that's popular or the sound that you think is the sound that sells at that point in time, but you're doing something different, it's still of quality, but it's different. It's not quite the thing that's being done right now. And if you stick with it, and this is something I found over the 19 years I've been making comics, is that you don't often find your audience as much as your audience finds you.
So
and
true.
I think there's a lot of creators that kind of have to understand it's like a war of attrition, and you gotta just set your feet in the ground and find a way to stick with this for the long term. You know, you're not going to find your audience right away. Sometimes it happens, but more than likely it's not gonna. And you got to just concentrate on doing what you love as best as you could possibly do it. Keep on learning how to get better at whatever it is. Tackle your problem areas. You know, that's a great thing that you're doing by offering how to help people like shore up on their art skills and everything like that, because that's important with comics. But you really have to have that endurance. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I hate, throwing the cliches at everybody with it, but they're cliches for a reason. And it's true. You seriously, if you do this for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it may be, you'll start to find that your audience finds you. Just because you've been around, you've been doing it for so long, you're going to find people along the way. They're going to talk about you to other like-minded people who they know would be interested, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. And I see a lot of creators who often enter this kind of space, their first year, second year, third year, they're very disappointed, resentful. Maybe they had stars in their eyes about the whole process. Even in comics, people will be like, "Oh, I'm not getting into comics to be rich because that's stupid. Who does that?" But I can still see the tinge of disappointment that that comic didn't sell. Maybe they sold 100, they thought it would sell 200. Maybe they sold 1,000, they thought it would have sold 5,000. It's like that. It's never good enough, and that's good to feel like you can always reach more people, because you can. But it's a different thing to beat yourself up about it and to get really kind of jaded by it quickly. And that's something that I think is really important. You got to have the attitude of embracing the fact that no one knows who you are. You're in obscurity, and take that time to have fun with it and find where you want to go. Because once they know who you are, there's expectations. So you got to really have that. You got this nice little bubble. You got to enjoy it, where no one cares what you're doing. And there's a freedom in that, So instead of looking at it like, oh man, no one knows about me, it sucks. Look at that and embrace that. And once you start doing the thing, that all of a sudden people know you and they're paying attention, and they are having that expectation for what they're going to get out of your work or a story, or when they see your name on something, they know that this means that, good, hopefully good, could be bad. But they have expectations. That's when you have a little less wiggle room. You can still be creative. You should still be creative, but you can't be as free as you were when you were in obscurity. So enjoy that while you have it.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of freedom in being able to just create without the expectations of an audience there to force you into or pressure you into a direction that maybe you don't genuinely want to go in. But I think beyond that, you were talking about how you've got to really be in it for the long run, because disappointment is absolutely going to happen. And of course, let's all be honest here. Yeah, we're in it for the money. We want to make money from this stuff. Why? Because we want the freedom and the ability to be able to do more of it. Because if we're out working in the office all day or mowing lawns all day, then we're not going to get time to draw. We're not going to have the energy for it either. It's very difficult to go out there, do a solid 8 hours work on a construction site, and then come home and draw a comic book unless you're extremely motivated. So yeah, we want to, if you are in that situation, make the situation a little bit more palatable by earning some money, at least enough to cover the bills, and then if we earn beyond that, great. Unfortunately, it's not a guarantee straight up, just because even if you execute all the steps perfectly. So you've got to know that it's more of a process. And I say that as an observer of my own art workflow. What I've found is it doesn't just drop out on the page in one beautiful rendition with no errors along the way. The only way it gets to that masterpiece is by making small, little, tiny adjustments. Sometimes they're big, especially in the beginning. It's like, damn, that didn't work. I don't like that pose for the character. Or I think the composition kind of sucks. I'm going to just get rid of the whole thing and try something new. You know, you get those foundations down. You find something that kind of works, and then you've got to tweak things sometimes in extremely subtle ways in order to finally reach that end destination. And so I think that running a business or doing this comic book crowdfunding thing, it's a little bit like that. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's enough independent creators out there actually making those tweaks that they need to make to see greater levels of success. I do see channels out there that have remained at the same amount of audience for years. Like it hasn't grown. It's probably shrunk a little bit, in fact. And the reason for that is because those adjustments haven't been made. Like, you found something that sort of works, right? But that doesn't mean the artwork ends there. Like, you're like in the middle stage, maybe. You might still be on the foundations. You got to build on top of that, and maybe you'll screw it up a little bit. Maybe you'll make a decision that ends up losing you a little bit of the audience, but that's okay, because it's not the end of the world. You can always build the audience back, maybe better than ever, by course correcting. And so I think that it's really important to approach it in that way. Let's say failure is a given, but you're going to fail your way to success if you keep on moving forward and you learn. You don't even need to learn from those failures. You just need to do something different if it starts screwing up on you, right? So I would love to see more creators doing that, because, you know, they either start their own YouTube channel doing something that they've seen another creator do and they've tried to mimic it, and it's kind of like it might sort of be working. They might have a tiny audience. And look, this comes from somebody that doesn't have the biggest audience, to be honest with you. So I'm literally in this process trying to think of ways as to how I can build things up. And so if something's not working, you know, maybe you're doing a podcast because you've seen Peter Samedi doing it and you thought, damn, this is a great idea. Peter's got an audience going on, great. But maybe it doesn't work out for you. So if it doesn't work, don't necessarily keep doing it. Either adjust it or do something completely different, right? Like maybe you do some drawing jams. Maybe you decide that you're going to talk about pop culture. Maybe you decide that you're going to talk about conspiracy theories because you're doing a conspiracy-style X-Files comic book, right? Like you could literally do a YouTube based around the theme and genre of the stories that you like to create. There's a lot of options out there. Test the waters. See what happens.
Yeah, and I find that this is something that happens a lot of the time as people create their comic too, is that they're looking so much at like what's already successful and what's already out there, as opposed to what they really want to make,
Yeah.
and having that tough conversation, and choosing to be a little vulnerable with that, and making something that is probably very important to them. So if
For
it doesn't
sure.
really land, they might get hurt. The ego
Yeah.
might get bruised. But the thing is that you got to do that. You got to lean into the thing you really care about, because if you don't, what's going to happen every time, and this is, I've known enough jaded creators in the industry to know they all have a common story where they spent a lot of their life working on things that they just didn't like doing. A lot of this stuff of like, oh, don't just be a gun for hire, make your own stuff, don't do what I did, kind of a thing. So even though, it paid the bills and it helped them get work and whatever else, they spent so much time doing projects for others that they were burnt out on doing something of their own and building that up. And then by the time they maybe had some time to do that, it was largely too late for them. And that doesn't happen for everybody,
Yeah.
but it's happened for a lot of creative people out there. So, if you're someone where that's fine for you and you're like, look, I just want to be a part of making something happen. I don't really have stories. I don't really have my own characters. I don't really get that kind of vibe, when I'm creating. I more like to be the collaborator who makes someone else's vision come to life. Nothing wrong with that. If you're happy with that, if that's what you love to do that. But if you're someone who wants to really create and you just constantly put that off, or you create things that you're chasing the audience as opposed to doing something that you think that, no one really makes this. I really love this kind of story. I love the idea of this kind of character. I'm not really seeing that out there. Maybe it's not out there because no one likes this. I see people talk themselves down from stuff like that all the time. But the thing is, everything that's become iconically successful, the reason that it's really that way is because largely there wasn't a lot of things like that to begin with. So you
Yeah.
took a chance and you put it out there, and it resonated or it didn't, but either way, you got to take that chance and do it. It's all about taking those risks. And I think we're kind of in this weird pocket of time, creatively speaking, where you don't get a lot of time nowadays to work out the kinks. If you're not immediately successful, if like your first crowdfunder doesn't do tremendously well, or if that first issue doesn't sell really well, or if you're not the best, you're the worst. It's this weird thing. But if you look back throughout the course of history, and we'll just leave it to comics, it took time. It took time to get. Not everyone was Action Comics #1, and you got Superman right off the bat. Even something like Batman took 27 issues of Detective Comics till that story worked its way in. A character like Venom. Some people love Venom, some people don't, but you can't argue that the character has not made an impact. That took 300 issues of Amazing Spider-Man to weasel its way into that that magazine and into pop culture and into the mythos of that character. And you could say that about a lot of different things. So when people kind of put themselves down about an idea just because they haven't really seen it done just yet, that kind of always irks me. And it doesn't mean I necessarily would publish it or would maybe even be interested in buying it, like me personally. But it does, because there's a lot of stuff that's popular that I'm not really into. A lot of characters that are great that I can acknowledge that they're great, but I'm not really into them. They don't resonate with me, but they resonate with a lot of others. It's just one of those things where I hate when I see people talk themselves down from running with an idea that means a lot to them, but it's because they think it won't be successful. It's not like this other thing that's already successful.
For sure. And I try to remind myself of this, that at the end of the day, it's just a comic book. it's just one comic book. Create that one comic book.
Yeah, make that story, put it out there.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. You can always go back and create another comic book. I think us humans, we have this habit, and I'm so guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, where we let that brain decide that it's going to take over and be in the cockpit, right, as the pilot.
Yeah, you analyze it to death.
Our mind, right?
Yeah.
It dwells on it. It thinks about it so much before we take action. And sometimes we think so long about it that we talk ourselves out of doing it in the first place. Whereas if we just took action on it and we ignored the doubts, we shut down the mental chatter, and we just did the work, we would end up with a final product. We could put it out there and let the chips fall where they may. And then that way, at least you know, like if it didn't work, at least you know it didn't work, and you know that the idea wasn't feasible. And that's good information to have. It's better than just leaving it up to, a guess and never have been able to find out whether or not it would work or not, because that kind of thing will haunt you. Like, maybe I should have done that comic book.
Yeah.
And
well, you never know too when you're executing on your ideas. You never know what path that's going to take you down. But I know what path you're going down if you sit there and you talk yourself down from doing anything. You're going nowhere. You're not going to make anything. But if you get an idea in your head, you're sketching it out, you're writing it out, whatever it may be, you make the whole book even maybe. You never know, who you're going to meet along the way, what kind of other idea comes from it. Even as I'm creating like King Cryptid, which is a character that I love and means a lot to me, especially at this point. I have an issue and I create an issue, and then it leads to ideas for like 3 or 4 other issues just from creating that one issue, because I'm thinking of all the story arcs that can spin out of the events that occur in this thing. And that's like a positive, that even if that issue doesn't really resonate with a lot of people, it led me to have all these other ideas that I wouldn't have had if I never made that issue. And maybe one of those ideas really resonates with people or more, and you just never know. But yet you have to execute on that stuff. And like you said, we spent so much time just like analyzing things to death, going through every scenario. It's good to have an idea. It's good to do your due diligence. But it's another thing that when people go down this road and they make it reality, and it's always the negative. It's always the, well, if it doesn't work out,
it's the way our brain is wired, man.
Yeah. But no one's like envisioning thoroughly anyway, well, what if it does work out? But we give a lot of credence to the fantasy that we come up with, the imagination of the negative. And it's good to not be in either camp. Just like you said, do the work, do the one thing, do the next step, take it panel by panel, page by page, drawing by drawing, and see where is it taking you. Don't think about the big, huge, 5 years, 10 years, what will this be like? Think about what you're doing today. What are you doing today? What are you getting done right now?
And how spooky is that self-fulfilling prophecy? You worry about it. You come up with this cool idea, but then you start to think, oh, maybe it won't work out. And then it never happens. So it literally didn't work out.
And you reinforce
because of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as time has gone on, Peter, I've really started to buy into manifestation again. I know, like, hear me out. I'm going to get a little bit crazy, a little bit cuckoo here, but the thing is, I've been having these weird experiences, man, where, I don't know if I told you this the last time we chatted. Did I tell you about the Ferdinand story?
No.
Okay, let me tell you about this. This is a fantastic story.
Ferdinand.
And things like this have happened so much that now I'm like, okay, this can't be a coincidence. Anyway, let me start the story. So, once a week, I will babysit my daughter while the missus goes out and hits the town with her friends, right? So it's a good opportunity for me and my daughter to to bond. And one of the last times that we were hanging out, we were playing this game with the farm animals that she'd borrowed out from the toy library. And I was a cow, and she was, a sheep or something like that. Anyway, we were coming up with names for the animals. And I decided to call the cow. I sat there for a second. I thought about this book that I read as a kid. Now, I haven't seen this book since I was a kid, but I remember it from the library. And I remember it so much because I love drawing the pictures from it. And it was a book about a bull called Ferdinand. And I think he was really fond of flowers for some reason. Anyway, Ferdinand, so I called this
I know
cow.
the book you're talking about. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I was absolutely obsessed with it, drawing tons of pictures of Ferdinand in my, I guess it was like a scrapbook when I was younger. So I called the toy cow Ferdinand. And I even said it to Quinn. I said, "Can you say Ferdinand?" And she goes, "Ferdinand." Right? So I asked her to repeat that name. And she did it very well, by the way. She knows how to say gigantic words like Gigantopithecus and yeah. I taught her that prehistoric ape.
That's great.
So, and she can say it, no joke. So anyway, the next morning I come out to make my coffee and I see my lovely lady and Quinn playing with the farm animals again. I go, "Oh, look, there's Ferdinand." And Erica, my lovely lady, she goes, "Ferdinand?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I read this book when I was younger." I told her all about it. Anyway, so like a week later, maybe a few days later, I'm there on Stan, which is like an Aussie version of Netflix. And me and the lady, we are making our way through the series Mr. Robot at the moment. So we watch an episode of Mr. Robot, and it ends, go back to the library, and wouldn't you know this, like no joke, Peter, down below, just underneath in new releases, not only is there a movie about Ferdinand, but Ferdinand has been like released recently, at least on this platform. And I was like, dude, what the hell? That's like some serious proximity right there of like these two events occurring and they're so tied together. And that just made me go, wow, okay, that's too spooky. Like there's no way, like even if they were listening to my phone, that they could have like organized themselves enough to a few days later put the movie Ferdinand up down there right underneath in new releases.
The Matrix assembled that film for you.
Yeah, it must have gone back through time and space and just plocked it there. So that tripped me the hell out. And there's been other experiences like that, but after that one, I'm like, okay, this manifestation stuff, there's something to it. And I used to believe in that as a kid. If there's a toy that I really, really wanted, I'd literally think about holding it in my hands. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd be pretending to play with it. And wouldn't you know it, like a few days later or a few weeks later, someone would buy it for me as a present, right? And there's no way they would have known to get it. I mean, I guess they probably knew what I was into to that degree, but yeah, I thought about that. And I remember reading The Secret when I was younger and a few other things like Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. That's a good book. And now I'm starting to really consider, where do I want my life to go? What is the grander vision for the How to Draw Comics Academy? Like, what's the absolute ideal endpoint that I'd like it to end up in? And I think that that is something that's been forgotten by a lot of people, including myself over the years, that we really need to click back into, because we do think about the worst case scenario oftentimes. And it stops us from even beginning that project or even going down that path in the first place. And it really does become a self-fulfilling prophecy for that reason. But what if we held a positive vision inside our mind? And Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about this a lot. He's like, yeah, I visualize myself becoming the best bodybuilder in the world. Accomplished it. They envisioned himself becoming the governor of California. Ended up accomplishing it. Envisioned himself becoming one of the best actors in Hollywood, and he accomplished it, right? So I think having a strong vision is exceptionally important, and that we've got to get back into the habit of really fantasizing about the ideal outcomes that we want to go after.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people confuse that whole, and maybe it's not so that they're confused about it, that it's just so many other people are confused, and then they spread it, and it's kind of like a game of telephone gone wrong. But the whole manifesting your thoughts, manifesting your reality, all that kind of stuff. It's not like you sit there and you just wish and hope and pray and that's it. What
Some
usually
spooky
comes
stuff that
about it,
happens, man.
yeah, what
I
usually
wonder sometimes.
it's a weird thing because it really is like it's the idea of if you think about every single thing you know of in the entire history of existence, that started with a thought.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
so if you see everything around you, because people are like, well, you can't manifest anything, you know, who can manifest things? That's literally you people manifested a tissue box, marker, computer, pencil, comic book. Like all of these things were manifested because they originally came about as a thought and then were worked out and given life in some way. We created them. You know, so every single thing starts with the thought before it becomes this physical reality. So it's all metaphysical before it's physical. So when
Yeah.
people are kind of not understanding the scope of that, it's not like you sit there, you blink your eyes real hard and you just wish that something's there and it's there. That's not what happens. You know, it's the fact that you are putting your thoughts to action. And what is really interesting to me is how do we even arrive at the thought to begin with a lot of the time? You know, and that's when you have this whole people talk about consciousness and people talk about shared consciousness and all that kind of other stuff too. You know, we used to say the words were like, you know, they pulled it from the ether. Like there we have all these words to describe things, all these phrases to describe things that some of science has narrowed it down, you know, to what the minutia is like, but we've been using these phrasings to describe what all this stuff is. It's just
Oh
maybe we
yeah.
can't put a formula to it or something, but it doesn't make it any less real. You know, so
Yeah.
it is interesting to me with that whole concept of stuff because I do know what you're talking about, where it's too coincidental.
Too coincidental. Yeah. Like, do
Yeah.
you think your thoughts, Peter, have a certain level of magnetism to them? Like, maybe if you think really hard about a Lamborghini being in your driveway, that it's not going to show up there magically tomorrow morning. But do you think more like, let's say you're worried about something bad happening if you go outside, right? And you're just generally worried about that. Like every time you step out, or maybe if you drive a car, you're worried. You don't drive your car too often because you're worried you're going to crash it. Do you think that scenario is somehow is more likely to happen and occur due to possibly the power of those thoughts, the potency of them? Like if it's really,
So
really
kind of like
worrying
a
you.
law of attraction kind of thing is what you're
Sort
getting at.
of. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't think you get anything for free in life. I do think it can be hard work, but I think that
Yeah.
it might not just be hard work. I think that there could be some other magnetism going on that connects events and people together. And one of the reasons that I also buy into that is I heard just yesterday in an interview that I was watching that we only see like 0.0036% of what is actually there in reality as human beings.
Yeah, we see a very small percentage of the visual spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, so who the hell knows how things are working and what's going on out there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think to your example about kind of like psyching yourself out in a way, I think not only does that happen, like you're increasing the likelihood of the outcome, but I think you're also 100% increasing the fact that you're going to reinforce that. So if you're
Yeah.
constantly thinking like this bad thing's going to happen, this bad thing's going to happen, any bad thing that happens, you're going to reinforce that within yourself. And
For
the
sure.
and
Oh,
the
yeah.
opposite, if you think, okay, a good thing's going to happen, good things are going to happen, you're going to start looking for that, and then you start positively reinforcing good things. It's the same
So
thing that like
true.
you can go kind of blind in a weird way. Like, let's say you're looking for something in the fridge, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
specific thing you're looking for in the fridge, and then your spouse will be like, do we have any of blah 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 left? And you're like, I don't know. But you saw it, it's in there. But you
Yeah.
didn't register it because you're not looking for it. And I think a lot of the times that's what we're like when we're going throughout life, is that we have a lot on our mind. We're looking for a specific thing, and we're not paying attention to the hundreds of other things that perhaps will aid us in our journey,
Yeah.
because we're looking so hard. People are like that as well when they're dating, or they're making friends, or they're trying to accomplish a goal or something. They're so set on thinking that this is the only answer that they don't see. They literally don't see, because it doesn't register all the other answers that are in front of them. They're just slightly different because they're so focused on this one answer.
It is kind of like a manifestation of sorts, at least in their perception, isn't it? I have a theory about that, though, Peter, that might knock you around a little bit. You ready for this? So, I was looking for the sticky tape yesterday, and I looked in the spot that it is usually supposed to be. Couldn't see it, right? Exactly what you're talking about. Couldn't see it. And so we're looking around, the missus is looking for it, I'm looking for it, can't find it. The lady comes back through, looks around where it's supposed to be, and she finds it. She's like, oh, it's right here. What are you talking about? Now, it was either always there, or through the process of quantum physics.
It dimension
She
hop.
said it was there, and then it manifested for me. And I was like, yeah, it is there. So I don't know. Sometimes I think that I'm looking for something, or sometimes I'll think that I see something out the corner of my eye. Like it could be it could be just like a jacket or something at the corner of my eye. And I look over there and like, oh, there's no jacket there. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I did see a glimpse of a jacket there, but then the Matrix changed its mind.
I forget where I heard it from, but I had heard from someone that like our peripheral vision almost picks up things at a slower frame rate. And the reason is
Ooh.
because evolutionarily, you would want to almost like slow down what would be coming at you so you can get out of it in time. And it doesn't mean that it's slowing down in reality, but it slows down in your vision so you actually notice it a lot faster than you would notice it if it's coming dead on. And that makes
Yeah.
sense. But what really freaks me out is that I was in traffic the other day, and
Yeah.
I thought that a cop was pulling me over because of what it looked
Whoa.
like in the side view mirror. And it's both the side and the rear view. I'm seeing in my peripheral blinking lights.
Yeah.
You ever see like when you film a computer monitor, especially back in the day with, you get like the different kind of the screen, the frame rates don't really add up. So the monitor's flickering on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right?
totally.
And it was that same effect, because then I look in the mirror and the lights are just even. They're just on.
Yeah.
But I look away and I can see in my peripheral, it's blinking.
What?
And I was like, I guess that's maybe true. And because of that, I've also heard a lot of stuff with paranormal communities where we're always seeing things out of our periphery because it's catching different things as they just kind of flicker right through.
Oh, I feel that.
If there's some science to it, and I don't know if there's like science that you can extract and say yes without a doubt, you are seeing like a weird thing in the corner of your eye, and then you go to look at it and it's gone. And the reason you go to look at it and it's gone is because you literally can't see that frame rate anymore. Your eye's picking up something different.
Like that plane.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well, yeah.
I don't know, but it was kind of interesting.
For sure. Sometimes it's not even the things that you think that you see. It's sometimes the feelings that you get. Like someone will feel like someone's watching them, but nothing will be there. And who knows, man? Maybe you're picking up whatever another plane of existence is putting down, and you're feeling it come through a little bit. Maybe the veil's a little bit thin at that point. That's kind of how I feel about the situation, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we can get better at tuning ourselves to that, like X-Men style.
Oh, absolutely.
We can get better at it.
I got this condition, Peter. It's called visual snow. Have you ever heard of it?
I'm pretty sure I have.
Yeah, so I legit have like this 80s movie grain over my vision at all times.
No way.
It or not.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And up until probably a few years ago, I thought that's just what everybody experienced. So if I go to lay down at night, turn out the light in a dark room, all I see is this noise, this visual noise. Like right now, as I'm looking at the camera, I can see the visual noise. And one thing,
there's like a graininess to it.
Yeah, there's a graininess. Yeah, 100%. It's exactly like that, like a film grain, very fine.
Like the world is on newsprint to you.
Yeah, pretty much. No, it really, really genuinely is. And so, yeah, I remember telling my missus about it because I just kind of speak my mind about this stuff. I'm like, hey, have you ever wondered about this and this? And she's like, yeah, no, not it. I don't know what you're talking about. And I explained it to her. Anyway, it started to get me thinking. I'm like, is this like, have I just got an old model visual headset going on here? Is that what what is happening? And so there's that, right? That trips me out a little bit. But then on the other side, have you ever had a migraine where the migraine begins with like these geometrical colored patterns? Do you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes it starts at the corner of your eye. It might be like a ring of sort of triangular, square sort of shapes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was experiencing that the other day. I think I've been playing too much Counter-Strike or something like that. And
that's why I wear these now.
Right? I think that's what's happening is I'm getting eye strain. So I've switched everything to night mode on my computer and on my phone. And I thought, that's so weird because I was observing that this pattern give me a migraine. I was like, it was floating in front of my eyes. I couldn't see anything. I was looking directly at Erica at the time. I couldn't see a face. It was just covered by this pattern.
Wow.
Oh, this is weird. And I was looking at it and I thought, that is such a refined pattern of color that I'm seeing there. Like, you would think something organic would be a little bit more random, like squiggly and malformed. But no, this was like someone was freaking drawing a ring of triangles and squares floating in front of my eyes. I thought, wow, that's so strange. It almost looked like tech. I don't know, man. I don't want to get... I can't explain it. I don't have any conclusions that are solid that I can give you. It's just an observation.
I hope it's I mean, I don't want to worry you. I just hope it's nothing serious.
It's okay. I took a Nurofen. Yeah, who knows? Maybe I've got a tumor in my brain that's making me so talented.
Right?
Yeah.
Bretsky said could be a concussion. I mean, I think you might know if you were concussed, but still.
Yeah.
It says that's something I've experienced when I was concussed while playing hockey. And that is something that can happen. You will get, I mean, you see stars. There's another one of those kind of phrases to describe.
I used to get it back in the day for sure. Whenever I got a migraine, there was in my younger years, there was this phase that I was going through, I was getting migraines. And now they've come back since I started playing Counter-Strike. So I think it's a bit of eye strain maybe.
Yeah.
Took a few Nurofen. It was all good. Haven't experienced it since. Still got the visual snow, man. Don't know what to make of that.
Yeah,
that's always,
I don't know.
And they say it's not to do with your eyes. It's neurological. So it's not brain it's not eye damage. It's the brain.
It's something how your brain's processing the visual.
Yeah. Weird. Right?
That is weird. Wow. That's the thing, though, right? Is that we all process stuff differently. Whether you smell,
we do.
All our senses. You smell, you taste, you hear, you see things differently. People feel. You ever hear of I think it's synesthesia or something like that. It's called.
Oh,
where
what's that again?
I think it's called synesthesia. I'm pretty sure, and that's like when you it's like you can taste. You can like taste colors. You can
Whoa.
it's that kind of thing of like you experience all these things that like the certain colors will have a certain like a certain taste or a smell to you.
So you mean you're
Like
looking at an orange wall and you can taste orange?
Not necessarily tasting, but you taste something that's associated with that.
Oh,
Like the way that
wow.
the way that your brain is interpreting certain stimuli, it's
Yeah.
interpreting it differently than the average person would interpret it. Like we see a color and that color maybe makes you feel a certain way,
Mhm.
but you don't experience it with like another sense.
Yeah.
Like you're not tasting words or smelling them or hearing color or feeling it. Like actually it's a strange thing, and there's people that have
For
that,
sure.
and that kind of blows my mind. Like there's all kind, but that's the thing is though, like everyone is here for a reason, and I think everyone has this different experience, and when people share it, I think it's kind of cool because you start to learn about how small we are in the world and how big it really is. Because like it's difficult to say that, let's say someone, I don't know, the color blue tastes sweet to someone, let's say.
Yep.
Who's to say that it doesn't?
Maybe that's how blue
like
tastes.
that's how that's how they're interpreting that, And it's kind of interesting to think about. Is that an actual? Are they having almost like an extra sense, like
I
an
think so.
ESP? Like where they're
Yeah.
actually getting something, and their brain is wired a certain way that it is communicating to them. Like, no, this is what that is. But for the rest of us, like it's a whole different, duller experience.
They're certainly getting an extra dimension of perception. You can't argue with that. Whether or not they're percepting it in the same way that you would perceive it is a different story. I mean, everybody remembers an experience in different ways. Like the memory we have of this podcast interview, Peter, is going to be different. Like you're sitting where you are right now in your environment. I'm sitting where I am in my environment, and we're going to have two very different memories of this moment, as will everybody who is watching right now. And so, even though it's the one event, what is the true perception of that event? There is none. It's kind of it's fractured into hundreds of perceptions. Just this one experience. So, I mean, that's kind of amazing to me. Couple that with some people taste color or remember things not through visuals but through feeling.
Someone out there is looking at us and we taste a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's pretty amazing stuff. Some people feel good about it. Some people feel bad about it. The feelings are happening that are directing and molding the memories that people make out of this. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It fascinates me to no end that like reality itself is a compilation of everybody's perception. And if that wasn't the case, then reality wouldn't be perceived. So, wow.
Yeah. And Spicer, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships to the channel. I appreciate that, man. And if you received one of Spicer's generous membership gifts, enjoy them. But yeah, what you're saying too, that's what I love so much about storytelling, is bringing in these different perceptions, these different perspectives, and it's hard to do it sometimes with every story, but it's really fun sometimes to bring in like the perception of events. Like I always enjoyed different episodes of shows when they would have these characters, like something happen and each character would be like, what were you doing at that point? And then you go through like their course of events and how they witnessed the thing that occurred, and because they're trying to figure out, well, how did this thing happen? Whether it was someone got hurt or something got taken or something. It's kind of like tracing everyone's steps and how they perceive that moment. I always kind of liked episodes like that, and I like in storytelling where you get in the mind frame of these different characters and how they would perceive certain things, because the villain, sure, you can make them one dimensional or whatever and they're just out to do something bad, but they're usually trying to accomplish something that, at least through their perspective, is a positive. And then for the hero or the protagonist, at the very least, they're generally trying to stop that villain from accomplishing something, because it usually is at the expense of something or someone else. So it's like all these different perspectives at play. And to really craft, I think, a thoroughly entertaining story, you have to understand those perspectives, because if you just go about it and everything's one dimensional, it can become kind of boring, predictable, and just not really exciting, because it just turns into, they do the bad thing, they do the good thing, and that's about it. But if you have characters with nuance in them, it doesn't mean that morally they need to be nuanced, but through their perspectives, they should be nuanced. And that's why I really like and enjoy storytelling, because it really does. It is fun to play around with that.
Absolutely. And think about how entertaining that is for the audience to experience the same event from a multitude of perspectives.
And then, they add their own perspective too.
And then they add their own perspective. Exactly. Yeah. I guess, in a sense, you can draw that back to real life and the way that you might conduct yourself, in that we get stuck so often in our own perspective and thus end up leading a life that is a little bit one-dimensional. Whereas if we took the time to really understand and visualize things from other people's perspectives, maybe we would make our existence a much more dynamic one. But yeah, sorry to pull so much off track from the, trying to start talking about comic books again. But yeah, drawing it back to that.
The keen observer
absolutely.
in the audience would know that all of this stuff we've been discussing really does relate to storytelling and how you craft a story, create a story, why you like a story.
We might inspire a story from this conversation.
Yeah. Well, all of this stuff is such a key element to storytelling, to creating in general, no matter what, even if it's not a story, just, you're even creating dinner. You don't think about these things, but it's like, what are you in the mood for? That's a story right there. Why aren't you in the mood for this thing you normally like? Well, because we had that yesterday. It's that kind of thing. It's like there's a story within everything. It's just we tell so many stories every day. So many narratives come about every day that we don't understand that, like, that is a storytelling element. And that's what storytellers would use to create a more realistic scenario.
Yeah. That's probably why we feel compelled to tell stories. Since the dawn of time, we wanted to do that. From ancient civilizations to the modern day, it's all been story. It's been one of the biggest ways in which we communicate. And here we are doing it through comic books.
Yep.
A potent way to tell a story, if you ask me, because you are combining visuals with dialogue, and it plays out kind of like how you would read any other book, but mixed with the experience of a movie. So you get to see it as well as read it. I love comic books as a storytelling vehicle for that reason.
Yeah, and different though from a movie too, though, because you also get to experience it at your own pace. Whereas the movie's
Yeah.
coming at you, and I mean, you can stop it and pause it every 5 seconds if you want to, drive
Yeah.
yourself nuts and everybody else in the room too. But with a comic, you can take your time. You can really, pour over that art. You don't have
Yeah,
to just
you
read it,
can.
read it, read it, flip through it, flip through it, read it, flip through it. You don't have to just do that, you know? So it's like you can
Mhm.
really take your time and observe also what's in, because some artists are so great that you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't look at everything they put into that panel, because they
Mhm.
put all these other visual cues in there to paint the scene and
Yeah.
add storytelling as well. It's not just in the words. So there's a lot of great stuff in there. I want to get to this comment from Shane. I hope he's still here with us, even though I know it's really late by him or early, depending what his perspective is, because it's like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. by him. He says, no one cares what you're doing, and there's a freedom in that. He's quoting me. It says, Peter, is that the same as creating a passion project and your audience finds you? In a way, yeah. I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, because and that's when I think you hear these stories all the time. Hell, even Stan Lee has that story, and whether or not it's true, because Stan could both spin a yarn and also embellish the truth to make it sound more fantastical than it was. But the way that Stan even describes creating Fantastic Four, it was literally like he was ready to quit. He was done with comics. He was fed up. He wasn't making stories he wanted to make, and his wife tells him, you always had this story in mind to make this superhero story, because he was looking at what DC was doing and was like, we need a superhero thing, but his publisher didn't want to do superheroes. They wanted to stick to what they were doing. And he figured, I'm ready to quit anyway. Might as well make this story. And then it turns into Fantastic Four as the concept, and he gets it going with Kirby, and then lo and behold, the rest is history. And there's so many stories that are like that with creative people, whether it's an actor, a musician, a comic book creator, whatever, that it's like, as soon as you decide, I am just so fed up trying to figure out what everyone else wants, I'm going to do what I want to do. That's when all of a sudden things start to work for you. There's so many times, so many stories from people that it's like that. So that's why I really can't stress enough. Yes, you want to do things that pay the bills. I understand that. But you are doing yourself a disservice if, as a creative individual, you never tell the stories you actually care about and want to tell. You have to go for that. More often than not, I think you're going to find success and happiness, which is such a weird thing to find as a creative person. But I think it's because a lot of the time we don't follow those paths. We go for scraping by, and and you got to get the next job, and you don't have time to worry about making the thing you want to make. There's bills to pay, and I get that. But it's ironically enough, the thing that's going to actually make you the most successful is when you do the thing you love.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And not to get too existential here, but I've been thinking a lot about, hey, we're all on the same road to that end destination. We got a certain amount of time to do the stuff that we really want to do and if we don't do it, it'll never get done. Like, we'll be lying on our deathbed thinking about all the stuff we wish we got around to, and it just would have remained a fantasy inside our brain. And I think that is such a brutal crime against yourself to commit, to leave these things, these amazing ideas inside your mind as just that, just a thought.
Yeah.
When, in the end, it really doesn't matter. Everything becomes like just flatlined in the end. All the money that you make, all the people that you knew, all the stuff that you owned, everything. And so if everything gets flatlined, then you may as well do the stuff that you really want to do in life and enjoy it before it all flatlines. Because if you're doing something that you hate and getting paid to do it, but you're miserable, then if everything just ends up the same, well, you had a worse experience than the poor dude sitting there sketching the cool shit that was in his brain into his sketchbook and never making $1 from it.
Yeah, it really is true.
Like, at least if it fails, you would have been happy creating it, and that's not a loss. That's a gain. That'll fulfill you. Money is actually rarely fulfilling for most people. You can listen to celebrities talk about that all day long. How, they thought money was the key, and then they earn millions and millions of dollars. They get everything they want, and guess what? That comic book idea that they wish they had pursued is still sitting there inside their brain.
Yeah, money, I find, is a multiplier. If you're a good person, it makes you a great person. If you're a bad person, it makes you a horrible person. Like, money just magnifies and intensifies whoever you are.
Kind of like alcohol.
Yeah, it rarely changes you. It's I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that, again, yeah, you need money to survive. You need money to keep doing the things you want to do. But that's the part, though, where you have to pay attention, I think, to the last part of, like, yeah, you need money to do the things you want to do. Because that's where we lose sight of it. Is like, well, money is the thing I just need to just live. So you're living to work and you're working to live, and then there's little time left for anything in between.
Yeah, that's a hard place to be in.
Yeah, and that's the craziest part. Again, it's ironic. All of this stuff is ironic because the more that you actually do the thing that matters to you, the more you make an impact on others, the more you make a positive change in the world, even though that wasn't the goal. The goal, like when you make the comic or the thing you want to make, whatever it is, you want to create something that's of meaning and value to you, there's going to be other people that then find also meaning and value in that. So the goal, though, isn't to maybe like change the world or do something positive or do, all these things like save comics. I see people all the time like, we got to save comics. No, you just got to make the best thing that you can make and that you love and care about.
Sure.
And then lo and behold, it gets other people to do the same. And then, oh, wow, comics was saved. These aren't the results. This isn't the goal. The goal is you want to make something that matters to you, and you want to make it of quality. And you don't want to make it even to inspire others necessarily. You want to make it because it means something to you. There's like a selfishness there, but it's like a good selfishness.
Yeah.
And that, ironically enough, is what's going to make other people do the same. If you just keep on doing things that are soul sucking and, it pays the bills, or you make a lot of money or whatever it is. I mean, how many people, like you were saying before, they make so much money or whatever, but then meanwhile, like, they're relatively miserable and they just pass that misery on to others. Like, so many people think, like, if I could work for like the bigger comic companies, it would be amazing. Well, there's a lot of people that do work for the bigger comic companies, and a lot of those people don't seem to be so very happy.
Oh, heck no.
And it's not that the comic company didn't make them happy. It's that they're just not very happy people. And they keep going down a path in life that keeps reinforcing this misery instead of realizing, like, wait, I have a choice. I don't need to constantly make myself miserable, and they don't want to have that conversation and go, well, what'll make me not miserable? I think for some people, I don't think they realize they do have a choice. I think they just think like that's what it is.
Big time. And, if money was truly fulfilling to people, if that's all that they needed, you would see these like huge movie actors like Tom Cruise, for example. I know Tom Cruise can be a bit crazy sometimes, but I really like him because he just keeps on like making movies. And he's not just making movies, he's making hits, like really successful stuff. And I think Nicolas Cage as well.
They mean a lot to him too. Like you can tell, like making film means a lot to him.
He's all about it. Like, say what you want about Tom Cruise, when he's talking about movies, you can tell that this guy really has a passion for them. He's a very rich man. He's got so much money. If he could quit tomorrow and he would have generational wealth. to retire on. But he doesn't. Why is that? It's because the passion is more powerful than what the money can give him, because money can only give you so much, but it can't create that comic book for you. You're going to have to do that. Now, maybe it'll give you potentially the means to do it. However, I wouldn't necessarily wait for the money to come before you start it. I mean, heck, you could be like freaking squatting as a homeless person. You could steal a sketchbook from the newsagent along with some pencils, hold up the newsagent, grab your art supplies, pull a burger out of the McDonald's bin and grab that, eat it, and then start drawing out your comic. You could start the thing, is my point, right? With very little, So that's what I think about. Like, what would you do if money wasn't an object? What if, like, the apocalypse came through tomorrow and you're, like, the lone survivor? What would you do for fun? I'd draw comics. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because and that you quickly find out what matters or what's most tangible. It's probably your passion and those you love in life.
I'd be putting like little faces, on the rocks and being like, so, how did you get here?
Yeah, totally. You just make your own friends. You'd repopulate the earth with your
Were you placed here, or
rock
did you
pets.
roll along into that little place right there?
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Totally.
And Clayton, it is great catching up with you again, and I can't believe that we've been doing this for almost an hour and a half, man.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of perfect. I can't believe we just decided to, end almost at exactly an hour and a half. That's pretty good timing. You keep it tight.
Yeah,
Peter Samedi.
Yeah. Well, we try, but it's easier when I got someone like you on. That's for sure. So Thank you so much, man. We could go even longer, but we won't. We'll have to keep. Sorry, Sark. Yeah, we're wrapping it up. We'll have to keep Clayton on tap for another day.
Yeah. I'll be a regular. I don't mind. I like chatting with you, Peter, and thank you for having me on, because you are a wonderful person to talk to. You're easy to chat with, and I think that we got a good chemistry going on. Finding people like that is difficult sometimes, especially to interview on a YouTube show,
Yeah, well, that's what I like with some people. I've gotten much farther past the point of interview that we can just have a good conversation,
For sure.
And I like tuning into stuff like that, and hopefully people have enjoyed this, and if they didn't, I mean, that's too bad.
Yeah, man. Maybe they're like, dude, this is way above my head what these two are talking
They're like,
about.
man, I just wanted to come here to learn about what comics these guys like, man. Like, that's what they're talking about. Well, I hope you guys did enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Clayton. Everybody in the chat. Clayton, before you go, give them somewhere to go to. Where do you want to direct them?
For sure. Look, if you want to learn how to level up your drawing skills so that you can create the comics that you've always wanted to put out there into the world, then I highly suggest you take a look at howtodrawcomicsacademy.com. You can also follow me on social media at How to Draw Comics, pretty much on every platform, X, Instagram, Facebook. We've got a How to Draw Comics page, and we've got a Facebook group on there. Definitely connect with me. I'd love to show you how this craft is done, because, I know kind of Peter just sort of brought this up already, but I really do want to lift up the comic art game of the industry. And more importantly, I want to allow you to be able to express what you see inside your mind down onto the page in just the way that you envision it, to the level of awesomeness that it deserves to have. It's difficult to do that before you get the right training, the mentorship, the feedback. That's what I'm here for. If I can help you do it, then certainly reach out, and be sure to check out howtodrawcomicsacademy.com, because there's a lot of free stuff on there as well that you can use to start leveling up today.
Yeah, great site, invaluable resource, and Clayton is a great teacher, especially from people that I've heard. But I just, even from your posts on Twitter, I'll catch some stuff that I gotta read through it, and I gotta like take a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it because I'm so fascinated. And
Wow.
I've learned a couple
Thanks,
of things
Peter.
just from your posts on Twitter. Yeah, I'm not joking, man. Like, there's been things that have helped me improve my own art. And I'm not a student of your academy.
Wow.
I'll just be a student of your tweets. And it'll help me improve something I'm working on. So I got to say thank you.
Oh, heck, man. I'm glad that you get some value out of them. Speaking of which, the YouTube channel have started putting more stuff out on. So each week I'm trying to do a live comic art lesson. So that's something to look forward to if you're interested. Not just you,
Very
Peter, but
cool.
everybody watching
I gotta
right
check
now.
that out. I'll
Yeah.
check it out, though. Yeah, that's for sure. Man. All right, everybody. I thank you again for being here. I got to direct you to newsprintcomics.com after, of course, you go to How to Draw Comics Academy there. But you can go to newsprintcomics.com, or you can go to alternacomics.com, or you can go to kingcryptid.com. So there's a bunch of different sites I've got. Everything, including Clayton's site, is in the description of the show. So that'll make it really easy for you guys to just pop on over to that. You don't have to remember any of these .com words. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow on Andy Smith's channel. Again, I'll be there at 2:00 Eastern, and then I'll have an open mic show tomorrow night at 9:00 Eastern. Hopefully we get some people for that. Until then, everyone have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All the best.
Bye-bye.